enjoying my
Starbies.
espresso that is poisoned. I'm going to turn into a Sabat.
No.
What is up, everybody? It is me, Mikey, at the Immortals Inc. headquarters, so brilliantly placed in Northeast Ohio. I know. And today I have Amanda with me. We are talking about, obviously,
The Anarch's Guide.
right. I mean,
Dressed appropriately.
like an anarchist, like I just told her. And yeah, we're here for more, just more guides for you. So take it away. What are the anarchists, and why are you dressed like one today?
Oh, well, as we've been going through this trilogy of episodes where we talked about the Camarilla, which is your most humane vampires, versus your inhumane vampires, the Sabat.
Yes.
Now we have the in-between, the Anarchs. Okay? So we've brought them up in the other sessions because essentially the Anarchs are the central point of V5, as you and I discussed the other day. They still care about the masquerade. They still care about breaches. They still care about keeping the Inquisition out of town. But they don't like the power. They don't like the social hierarchy, princes, all the red tape.
Okay.
Okay? So this is fighting the ivory tower, as we've mentioned in the Cam book. That's how the Anarchs see them.
And obviously this ivory tower hates the anarchs.
No.
What?
Here's the weird part. So they all say they hate each other, but they all use each other. And the Anarchs is where you see it most. Because the Anarchs have the flexibility that neither side has. Okay? So you'll have Anarchs who go and dabble with the Cam to try to figure out what's going on, try to keep sort of a peace going on. Same thing with the Sabat. Okay? This is also with independents, but independents don't really go in groups. And while anarchy implies no rules, no structure, essentially you still need a leader. Okay? So we're going to go and cover all of that here when we discuss the Anarch Guide.
Okay, and that's within this book, obviously. Yes. Okay.
So the first thing is, what is this book? It's a guide to the Anarch movement, ideology, and vampire culture. What is it not? It's not a giant list of amalgam powers. So as we've gone through the different books, you're looking for lore sheets. You're looking for new discipline amalgam where there are combos. That's what people think they're getting in a guidebook. And that used to be the draw of Old World of Darkness. There's one in this book. One. Eyes of the Serpent. It's for Setites. Or as they are now called, the Ministry.
Ooh, perfect name.
Yes. They've always been kind of a religious sect of vampires.
Whenever I hear Ministry, I just think of vampires. It doesn't matter what ministry we're talking about.
I think of The Undertaker from WWE when I hear Ministry.
I should probably cue the bells.
My dad met him once
on
an airplane.
I think my Uncle Josh did. I know he met Kane, but we're off topic. Actually, they're probably in the VTM universe.
They probably are.
They're probably Sabats.
Maybe not. As I mentioned, the Setites, they still are around. And where do they belong? Anarchs. Okay. Bruja, Gangrel, Caitiff, which is clanless, Anarchs. Okay. They also have the Duskborn, which is another name for Thin Blood. As you know, they have different names based on which allegiance they hold.
Yeah.
So along with the Anarchs, they're called the Duskborn, the Thin Bloods. Yep. And then, of course, you have the Ministry, which is the Setites or followers of Set, which are very serpentine. So
snake people?
They have some snake vibes.
I can't mess with that. Sorry.
Yes. And then one thing I thought was interesting about the Anarch Guide was how they see the traitor clans, the clans that quit the Cam. Kind of like how you have those who turn against the Cam and join the Sabat. You do have some that turn and join the Anarchs. And so like Malkavians, which as we know are the crazy vampires, they're now called Unchained Malkavians.
Oh, great.
In Anarch.
I thought they were already unchained.
They might as well be. Then you have the Red Nosferatu, Abstract Toreador, Free Ventru, and Ipsissimus Tremere. Okay? And all of these are basically saying that they are released, theoretical, without control, and owner of themselves. Okay.
Oh.
Now, Red Nos does imply communism. So there's probably a little bit of Marxist ideology that they share with everybody. But I also think, based on their section of the book, it also has to deal with the sheer violence that comes out in the Anarch movement.
I would imagine.
So I think there's
Hence
a little bit
the
of
name.
that. Yes. So I think that's more in that vein than necessarily communism. But you can interpret it how you will. Additionally, one I was surprised to see here, and now it's not too surprising, is Tremere. In Old World Darkness, if they left the cam, it was over. Their first, or, the first Tremere, would come and take them out. Their kind would put them down.
Wow.
But because in this V5, all the elders are out fighting Cain's war, dealing with Gehenna, while the boss is away, the Tremere are going to play.
Of course.
And so they too can be anarchs. And so I liked that they are the owners of themselves, because Tremeres are they're like a group within a group within a group. So they were ultra cam loyal in Old World of Darkness.
Now it's like that substitute teacher's here for the day.
Yeah, who cares?
Let's
I can do what I
F
want.
Off.
Basically. Yeah. And going further, what is the whole deal with the anarchs? Freedom from the political circus that is the cam. Flexibility in their role in the world. They're not quite cam, not quite Sabbat. They don't have an official master. But they still have a semblance of self-governance to preserve the masquerade and themselves. That's ultimately why they preserve the masquerade. Yes. As they do have barons, which are like a prince, revolutionary council, which is like Primogen, emissaries, which are diplomats, sweepers, which are similar to sheriff and scourge, gangs, which are similar to the coterie, which is your grouping in the cam, and then cells, which are like underground coteries, kind of like a criminal syndicate.
So they hate a social system.
Yes, but they have one. That's true in real life.
Yes.
If you group together, somebody's in charge.
Yes.
You can't be a group and have no one in charge.
If you're like, oh, I hate this system, you know what? I'm done with systems.
I'm done with all the systems, and
I
then
am now going to go
system.
into my own system.
Yes.
Jeez.
Also, this book has prominent vampires and their roles in the rise of the Anarch movement. So it gives flavor for who you are as an Anarch, what you're trying to accomplish, how you see the other groups, how you choose to interact with other kindred, how you see humans. And they don't see humans as cattle like the Sabbat. They still see them as an important part of society like the Cam. So,
a little bit of brownie points.
Yep. And
Fellow
where
human.
your loyalties lie. And your loyalty is ultimately to your friends and yourself.
And it just depends. Whoever you're snaking around, whoever you want to get intel from, huh?
Yeah, that plays part.
Snaky anarchs.
So, as I had mentioned, the Anarchs became the main sect of interest in the V5. This is because they're more flexible than the Cam, but they're not as hardcore evil as the Sabbat. So, from a player standpoint, they're like easy mode. You can still go out there, do things that aren't necessarily the best decisions.
It's just probably like the best neutral ground you can find being a new player.
Yes, and it kind of gives you the idea of a revolutionary. So in today's day and age, with all the unrest, politics, social media, everything, where everybody's crusading for something, it gives them an outlet. And they can crusade in a game space.
There you go.
And imagine. And part of role-playing, as you know, is working through problems.
And the, vampires in order that are in the presidential sector line up with our sector because ours are very old.
Yes.
So now, but they're not, they're close. 200 years old versus 80 years old. Really, who's telling the difference?
Yeah. So in essence, that's the key thing to take from this book, is that it's the ability to dabble and learn and express more than you might in a cam setting. Sabbat tends to scare players away. If you're not in the main group, you could technically get run out of a group if you don't mesh well with a Sabbat game. Because it can be ultra violent. This is a little bit more toned down. Will there be violence? Yeah. There's violence in a cam game, but it's more political. So this is like the in-between.
Yeah, like cam is like political, like Caesar's death, like getting shanked 20 times in a political setting for no reason.
And a lot of them will do behind-the-scenes uses of influence to get at each other. And Anarchs still do that. But they're also going to punch somebody in the face. You know, Bruja are known for their rage. They have super strength, potence.
Oh, so of course, you need something to use it.
Yes. And so this gives them that outlet. Then you have like animalistic features with the gangrel and the Setites. So it's a little bit more flavor, some more expression of powers. Yeah, there's only one amalgam, but that doesn't really matter because now you get to play these clans that left the cam. And the gangrel and the Bruja were always part of the cam and part of the Anarchs in the old game. Now that they're kind of exclusively Anarch and you might see them in the cam, is an interesting take on them. That it's kind of flipped.
Changes the whole perception.
Yep. As for the lore sheets, it also leverages that whole idea of connections. So this whole thing with anarchy is your connection to one, yourself, your city, and your friends, and the past. Okay? So the connections to some of the freedom fighters in Vampire, like Salvador Garcia, Agatha Stark, Hesha Ruads, and the Church of Set, Descendants of Xavier, Descendants of Tyler, Ruins of Carthage, and the Anarch Revolt. Those are all connections to people. And you can leverage them for bonuses. You can leverage them in some cases for powers, knowledge, as well as some sort of political play. There's also the whole idea of the blood plague. And this used to be a flaw. And so the fact that they're turning it into a weaponized benefit is interesting because in old VTM, if you had the fact that you had the plague or some sort of disease, infectious disease, you could spread it accidentally through feeding or if others fed on you. Now they're making it so it's a thing that you try to do. You can also detect those with disease. So
they want you to spread sickness. I
guess. It's kind of an interesting take on an old flaw. I'm kind of bummed that I haven't seen anything yet with True Faith in the vampire books. I didn't really see that much in terms of the Hunter books either. But it's nice to see some of these old concepts like that come back. What this is for me is a storyteller, insight on the sect and how it operates, ideas how to run anarchs, as well as how to help players make anarchs and play anarchs, and lore sheet tools to help players flesh out their characters. I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10 is solid.
It is solid. But why am I not giving it an 8? So, first off, it's sturdy and well put together. But honestly, I'd rather have less pictures and more content.
Okay.
I felt this one was very picture heavy.
Because it is a guide after all.
Yes.
You know?
I felt I could have dealt with less pictures, more information. I would have liked more amalgams, if possible, or at least more clan flair on some of these. Like, I would have liked to see more with the Gangrel, the Bruja, and the Ministry, because this was their book. And I was expecting more like what they did with La Sombra in the Chicago Guide. I had expected a little bit more for these three because they're the major players. They're the guys you want to be. And there's so much you can do with them. And I feel like they haven't really been represented yet. And this was their chance to do that, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, I see why. Yeah. If
you played other editions, I'm going to reiterate, change is good and change is bad. So So if you played any of the other World of Darknesses, you kind of trade some of that specialization and deep dive for playability. So the rules are easy, but you don't have as much to play with currently. Not saying that they're not going to change that in the future because they keep adding more and more books. But by having such an easy system to learn and play and determine success and failure and trying to streamline it, you lose that flair that you had before. So Protean is now both Setite and Gangrel. Setites used to have their own discipline called Serpentis, and it was really neat. Now it's just diluted down to an amalgam. And so I can see how somebody really loved the Anarchs and loved the Setites or any of the other clans in the past, that they might feel like that's it. That's all I got was one amalgam for them. It's not bad, but that's why it's a 7 and not an 8.
Yeah, and even at that 7, solid for...
It's solid. You need it
Yeah.
as a storyteller. I totally recommend it, but you're going to feel like the other 2 books gave you more. This is more of a guide to how to have that essence as a character, less in terms of mechanics.
Okay, very well said. And how much is that book? Is it same as all the other ones? Should be like 55.
It's 50
if
bucks.
not.
50 bucks.
Check it
for a
out
book.
in the description. I'll put it down below there. Yeah, 7 out of 10 solid.
I think so.
Yeah. So thank you, Amanda, for coming in today. Let us know in the comments if you have any suggestions on what you want us to immediately talk about next. Otherwise, we will be fulfilling the content over the next span of a few weeks. We have a good amount of stuff. So until next time,
Yep.
see you
Thank
later.
you.